Hi, and welcome to the NLHA channel, where this week we will be looking at online defamation. Okay, so over the last couple of months, or over the last month, we've had at least 3 separate incidents relating to defamation of character, but not in the traditional sense of defamation, rather defamation of character through social media. And with everyone having access to social media like Facebook, and WhatsApp, and those channels, this is becoming more common. And also the courts have been able to assess this already. But we do think that the cases in our courts will increase as we move forward, especially with new laws being considered and new laws being enacted that will give rise to further claims against parties relating to defamation of character. So I think it's important that we understand what defamation is and how it applies, not just to the traditional sense of defamation, but also online via social media. So basically, defamation is when somebody unlawfully and intentionally publishes a defamatory statement concerning another person. And the statement or the publication basically tarnishes the good name, the dignity, or the reputation of that person in the eyes of the community. So defamation is basically part of our law of delict, and therefore a person might have a delictual claim of defamation. So when we look at online defamation, the only real difference we will see is that with online defamation, the medium where the publication is done is online and not written, like for example in a newspaper or a book or a letter. It's basically through an online medium, and that is basically the main difference between online defamation and traditional defamation claims. The remaining elements doesn't change, and it's basically the same. So how do the courts, or how do we assess a claim of defamation, whether online or in the traditional sense? So there's basically 3 things that we consider. The first being the wrongfulness, and I will go into each one in a little bit more detail. The second would be the intention, and then the third one would basically be the publication. So when we look at wrongfulness is what we call an objective test. We refer to it as the reasonable person test when we look at objectivity. So here the court would consider whether an unbiased person would view the statement as being unacceptable. So the defamatory statement, will a unbiased person view that statement as being unacceptable? In one of the cases, the person raised the question of whether there's a difference in if the statement is true or if the statement is false. So in our view, no. It doesn't make a difference whether the statement is false or whether the statement is true. What is important is whether the statement that is made would be unacceptable. That is the measurement for wrongfulness. Then the second one was intention. So if we look at intention, it's straightforward. The person making the defamatory statement must have done it with the intention to damage the reputation or the dignity of the other party. So the accused person or the defendant in that case must therefore have known that the publication would be harmful to the other person. Okay, and that brings us to the third factor to be considered, which is the publication, and this is where the main difference lies between defamation online and the traditional sense of defamation, is that a publication exists whenever a statement is made to any other person or persons. So the defamatory statement doesn't have to be between the two parties. It can be in general. For example, a statement made online would be read by numerous people, known and unknown, or a statement published in a newspaper would be read by numerous people. So it doesn't have to be a statement made between just the two parties. It can be made to any other person. So also, publication doesn't have to be in writing, whether online or on paper. It doesn't have to be in writing. The publication can also be made verbally. So in our scenarios, the three scenarios that we've been faced with, the defamatory statement was published online, and that means on the internet, whether it be Facebook or WhatsApp group and so forth. So as long as it's through an electronic media or online. If we say online, we also refer to, for example, an SMS. Anything that is in electronic form would fall under the banner of being online. Okay, so that's the basic three factors that a court would look at. However, there are certain deeper considerations, factors that the courts also take into consideration, apart from just the three elements that I've mentioned. For example, the courts might look at the nature of the defamatory statement. The courts might also consider, for example, the reputation or the conduct or the character of the plaintiff. And then also the courts may consider the extent of the publication. So let's say it's a defamatory statement that was made on a WhatsApp group where only 5 people were part of the group, versus where a publication was made on Facebook and it's in all probability being seen by a couple of hundred people. Something else that comes to mind is, for example, rights. The courts will give consideration to the rights to dignity and privacy versus the right to freedom of expression. That basically means that your rights, as enshrined in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, the courts also give consideration to that. So apart from the three basic factors that surrounds defamation, there are a few other factors that the courts might also consider. So the onus or the burden of proof rests with the plaintiff. The defense, the person or the defendant, what options do they have to defend a claim of defamation? So the first would be to produce any evidence that rebut the claim of defamation, and especially the three core factors. That's basically evidence that rebut the elements of wrongfulness, intent, and publication. Whether the statement was false or whether what was said is true is irrelevant as a defense. You can't use that as a defense to say, no, but it's true. That's why I can say it. You can't say it, even if it's true. Another defense would be, for example, where a statement was made on a privileged occasion. So let's say, for example, in an attorney-client relationship, that would be a statement made on a privileged occasion. So there are a few defense mechanisms that can be used to rebut a claim of defamation. However, I think, as I mentioned, that we will see an increase in defamation cases through an online medium or online channels. Our laws are changing to accommodate our connected society. Everybody's got a cell phone these days. Everybody's on social media in some way or another. So it's very important that you be cognizant of what you say online and be safe and be aware of your rights. Whether a defamatory statement was made against you or whether you are the one that made the statement. Be aware of this because it's very, very, very important and it can come back and haunt you. So if you have any other legal questions, or if you wish to be a guest on this channel, please use the contact details in the description below and reach out to us and we will try and communicate with you. And thank you for liking, sharing and subscribing, and until next week, goodbye.